Hey guys, hope all is well again. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully these videos are helping. Let's get to it. Yesterday what we did was we started with working with volume of a rectangular prism. And again, you know that a rectangular prism is a figure that's three-dimensional, right? Three-dimensional, so it has three dimensions, which would be length, would be width, and it would be height, right? And we know that this is a rectangular prism because a rectangular prism has rectangles going around. And we also know that it has six faces, right? Because since it's a rectangular prism, it looks like a box. You know that you have the front and the back, left and the right, top and the bottom, right? What we did yesterday was volume, which is you found out how much is inside of that figure. And when you found volume of a rectangular prism, it was length times width times height, which tells you how much is inside. What we're going to do today is going to be something that's a little bit different. What we're going to do today is something that's called surface area. And immediately, the difference between surface area and volume is that when you're dealing with volume, volume has to do with how much is inside. Whereas when you're dealing with surface area is how much is on the outside. So the best way I can ever explain this is, say you have this again, and I keep going back to the eraser because it's a rectangular prism. Has six faces, right? The front, the back, the top, the bottom, left, and the right. When you're talking about the volume, you're talking about how much space is inside. But since today we're working with surface area, you're thinking about how much is on the outside. So almost think of it as a cardboard box. If you have a cardboard box, the surface area would be how much cardboard is on the outside. If you're talking about wrapping a box, wrapping a gift, that's a box. Surface area would be how much paper would go on the outside. And all that surface area, because all of that is how much is on the outside of the figure. So the major difference between the two, volume is how much is inside a 3D shape. Surface area is how much is on the outside of a 3D shape. So today we're going to work with, again, rectangular prism. And it's going to be a lot more difficult than yesterday, just in terms of, yesterday was length times width times height, and that was it. Today it's surface area. You actually have to figure out how much is on the outside. And since you're figuring out how much is on the outside, you got to figure out how much is on the front, how much is on the back, left, right, top, and bottom. Good thing about a rectangular prism is whatever's on the front is the same as the back, whatever's on the top is the same as the bottom, and so on and so on. So, best way I can actually show you this is, think of a rectangle, right? You have a rectangular prism. You know that all of the faces are actually rectangles, right? And since we're talking about a rectangle, you know that when you're finding the area of a rectangle, you can do length times width, base times height. All of these are the same formulas that will give you the area of a rectangle. And since we're talking about six of them, six rectangles, you're going to have to factor that in. So let's say, for example, I wanted to find the surface area of a rectangular prism. You're going to have to find six areas. You would find the area of the front, area of the back, area of the top, area of the bottom, left and right. And if you wanted to do all that separately, you could. But there is a formula that you can use, which is going to look a little bit complicated. It's going to be 2 length times width plus 2 width times height plus 2 length times height. And the reason, one, that you have all of this is where the 2 is coming from is basically referring to the two faces that are the same. So for example, when we're talking about length and width, we know that this is the length, we know that that's the width. So if you're talking about length and width, it represents the bottom, right? And since the bottom is the same as the top, that's why we have 2 of them. Whereas when you have the width and the height, we know that that's the width, that's the height. So this one would represent the side, and since it's 2 of them, it's 2 because you have the right side and you have the left side. And then LH represents the length and the height. So that would represent the front, right? And then the 2 means that the front and the back are the same, so you have 2 of them. Altogether, 2, 2, and 2 gives you 6, the 6 faces. And again, 2 of them are the same, 2 of them are the same, 2 of them are the same, add it all up, and that's our surface area. Now I'm going to do practice with the formula. I just wanted to explain to you first where that formula is coming from. Now the way that we apply this formula, and I'm going to write this a lot smaller, just because I'm going to need the space for it. And I'll do 2 examples with it. Hopefully it'll help. Let's say that I want to find the surface area of this rectangular prism. And again, we know it's a rectangular prism because it's got rectangles on the faces, right? And since we're talking about surface area, we want to find everything that's on the outside of it. So first thing, let's say that this is going to be 3 centimeters, right? That's 3 centimeters. Let's say that this one's 4 centimeters. And let's say that the height is 5 centimeters. And if it helps you, label everything. If it genuinely helps, label everything that we have. And again, you can mix them up, doesn't matter, but it's just good to get in the habit of making everything common. We know that this one here will be the length, right? We know that this here will be the width. Let me change that to an L so it looks more like an L. That's going to be the length. That's the width. And then the height is 5. So we know that the length is 3. We know that the width is 4. We know that the height is 5. And now let's just use our formula for surface area. And again, I'll try to write it small so it's next to it. It'd be 2L length times width plus 2 width times height plus 2 length times height, right? I know what we're going to do now. Let's just start substituting everything. So when we start substituting the formula, it's going to be 2. We know that the length is 3. We know that the width is 4. So that's our first part. It would be 2 length times width. That's the first part. Let's move on to the second part because we're done with this one now. So the second part's going to be 2 again. Right? Now it's going to be width, 4, times height, 5. And again, it's 2 times width times height. That's the second part. And now the last part, I'll write it down here, is going to be again 2. And now the length is 3. And we know that the height is 5. And again, we know it's 2, and we have 2 for everything because there's 2 that's the same. Front's the same as the back, top is the same as the bottom, left is the same as the right. Now all it comes down to, it's just simplifying each part. You have 3 parts that we can simplify. And whenever we have numbers next to each other, it always means just multiply. So the first one is telling you to do 2 times 3 times 4, which we can do. So let's do 2 times 3 gives you 6. 6 times 4 gives you 24. And I can even break down just if it helps. So 2 times 3 is 6. So we got 6 times 4, right? The next one we can do 2 times 4 is 8 times 5. And then the last part is 2 times 3 is 6 times 5. Now some people are going to do this, which is great. And then there's another way, if you want to actually do this much quicker, you could. Because now we know that 6 times 4 is 24, right? We know that 8 times 5 is 40. And we know that 6 times 5 is 30. And again, I did this whole step here in the middle, right? You don't necessarily have to do that step. If you wanted to, you can do just this to take you straight there. Because 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. We know that 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40. We know that 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. So if you can do that and just want to go straight to there, you could. It will give you the answer the same way. But now we need to simplify because we have all 3. Now we just have to add them up. We know that 24 plus 40 is 64, right? And then we have that 64 plus 30 gives us 94. And we're done. The only thing that's missing is just a notation. We're dealing with centimeters. And now this is where you got to be careful. Since we're talking about surface area, since we're talking about area, area is always squared. Always. And it's squared because even though it's a 3D shape, when you're dealing with a rectangle, it's flat. Anything that's flat is 2 dimensions. And again, since we're multiplying centimeter times centimeter, centimeter squared. But going back to what we learned though in school, anytime you're dealing with area, area is always squared. Volume, what's on the inside, is always cubed, 3. So again, just showing you where the 94 came from, we just added up all three. 24 plus 40 was 64. 64 plus 30, 94. And all that 94 means is if you were to, let's say, have a gift that you want to wrap, you would have 94 centimeters squared of paper around a box. The 94 just tells you how much space is around on the outside. And that's surface area. Again, surface area is how much is on the outside. Volume is how much is on the inside. And I'll do another one just to see if it helps you guys out. But again, the formulas that we're using here, they're all on Pearson, the program that we're using, and it's all under the tab that says Geometry Formulas. For assignments, quizzes, tests. Feel free to use that all the time that you need to. Again, one more example, guys. Let's do it. Let's say you have this rectangular prism. And again, they don't always all look the same, right? We have this, let's say. And for the rectangular prism, I'm going to end up wanting to find the surface area. Right? I want to find the surface area of this rectangular prism. And so let's say that this here, let's say that the length is, let's say, 2 inches. Let's say that the width is 3 inches. And let's say that the height is 10 inches. So we got all that right now. And now it's just, before even starting it again, we know that the formula, which I'll always give you, is going to be surface area is equal to 2 length times width plus 2 width times height plus 2 length times height, okay? And now once we have that, it's just substituting. But in order to substitute, let's label them. We know that this is going to be the length, right? We know that the 3 is going to end up being our width. And we know that the height automatically is 10. And again, if you mix up the length and the width, there's no issue. But if you get in the habit of it, it makes things a lot easier. And now, again, we're just going to end up substituting it. So we know that it's going to be 2, right? The length is going to be 2. We know that the width is 3. Okay. For the second part, it's going to be 2. We know that the width is 3. We know that the height is 10. And now the last part, let's see if I can squeeze it in there. It's 2. We know that the length is 2 again. And we know that the height is going to be 10. Okay. So we have all that. So let's go step by step. Because again, once you have these numbers all next to each other, it's just multiplying everything up. And so we know that 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Right? And once we have that, we're done with the first part. And again, I got 12 because 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So we're done with that one. The next part, we know that 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 10 is 60. And again, where that came from, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 10 is 60. We got that one. And now the last part. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 10 is 40. And it's just going however you want to do it. It doesn't even matter the order that you multiply it, because if you want to do 10 times 2 is 20, 20 times 2, 40, doesn't matter. One way or another, it'll end up being right. And now the last step we have to do is just simplify it. Let's add up all of our different terms. We know that 12 plus 60 is 72, right? And we know that 72 plus 40 gives you all 112. And since we're talking about area, what's on the outside, we know that it's going to be inches squared. Whenever it's area, it's always squared. And just remember again, guys, since you're talking about surface area, you're talking about how much is on the outside. When you're talking about volume, you're talking about how much is on the inside. And whenever it's area, it's always squared. Whenever it's volume, it's always cubed. Hope this helped. Tomorrow, we're going to do a quick review. Friday, I'm going to post a quiz for you guys in terms of finding surface area and volume of a prism, and also knowing surface area is what's on the outside, Surface area is what's on the outside, volume is what's on the inside. Hope this helped. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care, guys.